to go back up again. Each floor is randomly generated, so each visit to the tower will be slightly different. I should mention that the layout is more or less the same, but the major structures of each floor have their locations switched around, and the map of each floor is wiped clean upon each visit, so you still have to go through the level all over again every time. If you die at any point, you'll be given the option to revive yourself to full health with a premium token that costs real money, or return to the main hub. You can buy back the character with a fee of kill coins, which is the in-game currency, or go back to the floor you died on and kill your old character who has turned into an enemy to reclaim them, or just remove them from your roster entirely. More on this later. There's a healthy amount of weapons and armor, each with their own flair. You got machetes, hammers, clothing irons, revolvers, sniper rifles, katanas, and much more. Using a certain weapon type levels up your mastery level with that type, and will gain bonuses as you level up, like unlocking another attack move, more hits in its combo, or reducing the amount of stamina it requires to use. Your mastery levels actually carry over universally, so if you become really good with swords, every fighter you pick up in the future will also be very good with swords. Speaking of which, stamina is consumed whenever you sprint, attack, or roll. It replenishes quickly, but if you use too much, your character will stop to catch their breath, leaving you very vulnerable to attacks. So always manage it well. Attacking also fills up your rage meter. When you get enough, hold the action key and execute a powerful move with either weapon in your hands. If you stun an enemy, you can also execute them with a flashy finisher. These always look pretty epic. Whenever you're at the main hub, you'll first get to cash in your XP and upgrade your stats. Then bring any blueprints for new items you found in the tower to the shop. You'll be able to add that item to the shop permanently after fetching the required materials to craft it. And you can buy an infinite amount of that item with gold, albeit with a timer of how frequently you can purchase it. You can also upgrade an item by bringing in even more resources. Beside the shop is the decal dealer. Decals are passive abilities that can be applied to your fighter. The more powerful your fighter, the more decals you can stick onto them. Buying one will cost you a pretty penny though. You can hold different fighters at a time in your freezer. You can try out the other classes if you ever get bored of one, or unlock higher grade fighters when you reach certain floors. The all-rounder has balanced stats. The striker prioritizes strength and health, so it's good for melee setups. The defender and attacker are more of a PvP thing. The shooter is good at using ranged weapons. The collector has additional inventory slots. The skill master is completely useless. No, I will not elaborate on that. And the lucky star can find more gold and is more likely to land critical hits. You can use the classes to your advantage, like using the collector class to gather out resources from floors you've already been to, then switching to an offensive class when pushing higher floors. The gameplay loop goes something like this. Equip yourself with decent gear, ride the elevator to the highest checkpoint you reached, and try to find a route to reach a higher point that contains the next elevator. The higher the floor, the better the loot, but also the deadlier the enemies. Certain floors contain a mini-boss, which in reality there's only 4 of. They just keep putting a tougher version of each within the 40 floors you climb with inflated stats. Gather better quality resources, better loot, more blueprints, and return to the hub when you think you need to refill on supplies or just want to store your hard-earned loot so you don't lose it if you die. Sounds pretty neat, right? It's a unique take on the roguelike genre. At least this was my first impression of the game as well, as my progress past the first 10 floors went rather smoothly. Of course, this is as far as I'm going to glorify this game. Let's start talking about the combat. The problem in gameplay starts rearing its head when you realize the combat in Let It Die is extremely clunky. In a game where you can hold an item in either hand, it should have been a playground for experimentation for creative playstyles. How about a fire-based weapon in your left hand, and a weapon that deals additional damage to enemies on fire in your right? Except the majority of weapons in the game have little to no synergy with one another. You finish attacking with one weapon, then your fighter has to wait until the attack animation is done before attacking once more. It feels like there's no flow in your attacks, and no room to experiment with different weapons. Since your weapons eventually break, I found the best strategy to dish out the most DPS is to just fill your slots with whatever strongest weapon you got and just use that one weapon over and over again. In most 3D combat games, you have a lot of flexibility when it comes to mobility. Say you want to change direction or cancel out of an attack. You should be able to do that to make sure the player feels like they are in control. In Let It Die, this is not the case. When you attack, you cannot cancel out of the attack or move around until you finish the animation, which leaves you very susceptible to interruptions. Let's talk about the roll mechanic next. Remember when I said the dodge roll is used to, well, dodge enemy attacks? Yeah, except despite what you think, the roll doesn't actually give you iframes. In Souls-like combat, you find the perfect balance of sneaking in your own hits while skillfully dodge rolling through enemy attacks. Yet in this game, if you try to dodge through an enemy's chainsaw attack, for instance, your character just awkwardly gets stun-locked in place mid-roll while you stand there helplessly, take damage until the attack is finished. That's right, if you're hit by an enemy, you're stun-locked. This can have catastrophic consequences when you get comboed by a group of enemies. A bad hit can cause enemies to permanently stun-lock your character and just instantly kill you with one chain of attacks, and there's nothing you can do about it.
No! Oh, get out of there! Get out of there! Get out of there! Get out of there!
On every floor, there is a unique enemy known as a hater. Something this channel does not have. Haters are enemies that were once a real player that died on that floor, and now you have to defeat them with the gear they had on them when they died. Sometimes haters have such differing power levels from the enemies on that floor that they can completely catch you off guard. I'll also briefly mention the wonky enemy AI. Say you get into a fight you can't finish, you're running low on health, or your weapon just broke. Naturally, your first response is to run away from enemies and get your bearings. You would expect that enemies would lose track of you eventually, except the enemy AI in this game is programmed to chase you down to the ends of the earth. It does not matter how far you run, they will try and hunt you down. The pathfinding and detection is also pretty out of whack. If you suddenly hear the combat music kick in, brace yourself, because it means that sometime, somewhere, an enemy will eventually, miraculously, pathfind its way to you. When fighting, the best strategy, as it turns out, is to not dodge, but simply run. By sprinting back and forth and baiting out an enemy attack, they're the ones that get locked into their attack animation. Then you just run up to their side and get in your own attacks. This is how you can safely dispatch every single enemy in the game, even bosses. This single strategy of baiting out attacks works so well, you can beat any enemy this way even when underleveled. It goes without saying, this playstyle gets repetitive fast, since you really want to avoid taking damage and potentially getting stun-locked. The reason to do this is that the game discourages players to get creative, as dying has extremely dire consequences. So next, I'll cover how dying works in this game, and it'll serve as the entryway to how Let It Die monetizes itself. When you die, you have the option to revive on the spot by expending a death medal. These are premium tokens that you mainly get from spending real money. A single death medal roughly estimates to around 50 cents. But since they seem to be running special deals all the time, I'll be generous and say that each death medal is only 10 cents a piece. Now you might be thinking, isn't this just blatant pay to win? Can't you just pay your way to victory no matter how many times you die? Well, here is where I'm gonna defend it a little bit. If you're getting one-shotted in a boss or a level, no amount of revives is really gonna do you any good. It's best to just throw in the towel and level up your gear, then come back later. You should really save this as a last resort if you're like one hit away from winning the fight. Though the time I played, there was an event where I got one free continue per day, so that's pretty cool. Your death medals should mainly be spent on upgrading your storage space, as it is a much better value. But let's say you actually died. What then? Well, first, let me take a detour and talk about the Express Pass, which is the game's subscription-based monetization system. For the low price of $15 a month, you have access to a plethora of advantages to make your climb a lot easier. Let's take a look at what they are. As I mentioned before, when you die, you can bring your fighter back to life by paying coins. You pay more the higher floor your fighter died on. The fee gets to an insane level if you die on floor 30 and up, as the gold needed to bring them back will require hours to accumulate by grinding. But wait, If you have the Express Pass, you get a discount for the buyback. How much? How about 80% off? Did the buyback originally cost 250k gold? Well, now you can bring them back for just 50k. That gold that you saved can be used to stock up on resources and upgrades, which is a huge weight off your shoulders. But say I didn't want to pay. I did say that you can retrieve your fighter's body by defeating them on the same floor. Well, doing so is way less advantageous. Why? Well, by buying back your fighter with coins, you get to keep all of their stats and gear. Anything they had on them before they died just comes right back, and you get to play as them without losing any progress. Retrieving them by defeating them, on the other hand, will cause all progress they made during their last climb to be lost. Their entire inventory, gear, weapons, food, blueprints, gold, XP, even the decals, all wiped from existence. If you spend an hour trying to climb to the next elevator, found all sorts of goodies, and gained enough XP to level up 10 times, you just lost that entire hour worth of progress. This is something roguelike games want to avoid at all costs, making the player feel they just spent hours playing the game and got nothing out of it. Hades allows players to expand the lore and get upgrades upon each death. So even if you lose, you have something to look forward to. Dead Cells allows you to keep a portion of your gold and cells when dying, so you can still make some progress towards unlockables. Slay the Spire and Binding of Isaac both give you unlocks for certain milestones, so your next runs will still feel fresh. Let It Die, on the other hand, holds your progress hostage until you pay up with gold or buy the Express Pass. This is extremely scummy, as buying back your fighters with gold is the only way to ensure your progress. And given the game's clunky gameplay, dying rarely feels like it's the fault of the player. So what are some of the Express Pass's other advantages? Normally, riding an elevator will cost you a small fee, and every time you go to one, you'll have to be reminded by the gold-plated, velvet-cushioned express elevator beside it, and how you have to pay a subscription to ride it. See that really cool looking feature? Yeah, you can use it. The express elevator does not require a fee, so you can use it as much as you please. If you use the normal one, the fee is not that high, but it can add up over time. Plus, you'll have to ride the elevator twice every time you enter and leave the tower. With the Express Pass, you also get a random premium decal every day. These are powerful passive abilities that you can stick onto your fighters. But remember, if you don't retrieve your dead fighters using gold, you will also lose any decals they had on them. Unlike gear from the shop, decals are one-time use. One decal can be applied at a time, and any additional ones will have to be bought again. As for the PvP aspect, other players can raid your base and take your gold and splithium, which is another upgrade currency. However, with the Express Pass, anything that gets stolen from you gets reversed, so you'll never have to worry about losing currency. Last but not least, and possibly the worst offender of a pay-to-win mechanic, is the permanent extra 10 inventory slots for every fighter. Your inventory in Let It Die is precious real estate. By default, you only have 20. That means anything you find while climbing will have to be considered whether or not it's important enough to take with you. Since all your gear, weapons, blueprints, consumables need a slot each, you'll run out of space really fast. Now, the developers have gone and said that players don't need to pay to enjoy the game, and that the paid content are only conveniences that the player has the free choice to pay for. I disagree with this sentiment. No player will choose to be inconvenienced. If I was the developer and I said to the player, hey, would you like 30 inventory slots or would you like 40? Why on earth would you ever choose 30 when 40 slots is just a direct upgrade? Why would anyone want to purposely inconvenience themselves with a smaller bag? How is it player choice if you're taking away all the options and leaving them with one? If you buy the Express Pass, you will, beyond a shadow of doubt, gain many gameplay advantages over non-payers. It's a classic case of create the problem, sell the solution. Now, a popular argument to defend that Let It Die is not pay to win is that you can simply just play more. Sure, you get less space to carry, get rated of your resources, get less powerful decals, pay more for fighter buybacks, but you can just make up everything with your time. You just have to play more, but you can achieve everything as a free-to-play. So this is where the line gets a little blurred. I define the phrase pay to win as being able to reach the win condition of whatever game you're playing faster if you pay real money. In this case, reaching floor 40 of the tower or anything beyond that. Sure, you can't directly buy upgrades or gear that can give you an advantage. However, everything I just listed, all the advantages that the Express Pass brings will allow you to carry more resources with you every run, pick up more materials to bring back, and be more lenient with your moment-to-moment gameplay, ultimately allowing you to indirectly reach the win condition faster. A great video by Josh Drive Hayes outlined the properties of a pay-to-win system and how it blurs the line to make it less apparent.
You're still giving yourself the ability to access the win state faster. Instead of directly buying the sword, you're directly buying an advantage to go and get the sword. There's an extra step involved, but ultimately spending money still means you are getting to the win condition faster.
All in all, my argument is that the game is pay to win. But here's where I'm gonna defend it a little bit. It's not that bad, as even paying can't circumvent the amount of grind you have to do. I have no problems with game companies trying to make back the cost of creating a free-to-play game. If the game sold skins, I would have no complaints. I do have a problem if they gatekeep basic quality of life improvements and straight-up upgrades behind a paywall. This game was designed with a free-to-play scheme, microtransaction-based model from the ground up. Every bit of game mechanic reflects this. The gameplay is clunky, and the upgrade system is stingy, and it is precisely so to make you frustrated and nudge you to eventually say, "Here's my money, now give me progress." The devs did not state a clear reason why they made the game free-to-play, but I have a really sounding theory why they did so.
Money.
A lot of obscure MMOs or live service games manage to stay afloat because a small percentage of whales will keep throwing money at them because finding even one whale is extremely profitable. Now, everything I just mentioned, the stingy inventory space, the clunky controls, the samey combat, a question you might ask is there an actual way to beat the game without paying or causing a hemorrhage? Yes, there actually is. A phrase I hear again and again in the community when I looked up guides is the idea of a gear check. It's best explained if I just explain my journey up the Tower of Barbs. Just like any freemium game, it starts out rather innocently enough. You scrounge up whatever you can find and climb to floor 10 at a good pace. Given the low amount of unique structures, I often found myself seeing the exact same room layouts over and over again. The structure on floor 3 appeared again on floor 4, and I was confused if I was still on the same floor. This game clearly values quantity over quality. Anyways, I make it to floor 10 with my mishmash of scavenged weapons and armor and face the first major challenge. Every 10 floors occupies a boss known as a Don, one of the guardians that prevent you from advancing further. Remember what I said about a gear check? Yeah, I realized this idea a little too late. At the time, 4 hours into the game, I haven't been punished too much. I was able to make do with whatever the game gave me. So I enter the level, and our opponent is Max Sharp. We go through a level on a train track. By landing on platforms, jumping across tracks, we slowly make our way to the front of the train. And I'll admit, this level design is pretty creative, better than the previous levels at least. If only all the floors were like this. So as I reach the front, we are dropped into a boss arena. This boss may seem unique at first, but Max is actually just a reskin of a mini-boss I already fought, who just has some new moves up his sleeve. This fight was my rude awakening of what's to come, and what used to be scratches of my health from normal enemies, Max would shave off a good third of it every hit, sometimes comboing me into the electric fence. At this point, I still thought I could dodge roll the boss's attacks Dark Souls style, except this was when I realized the roll does not give iframes. This will be the second time I say it, but this game is not a Souls-like. After expending a death metal since I was so close, I was able to best Max. I'm congratulated by my crew, and floors 11 to 20 are unlocked. A quick look at the achievements. Let's see how many players beat floor 10. And it's 12%. Only 12% of players who have the game in their library ever made it this far. Well then, continuing onwards. Now instead of a sewer area, floors 11 to 20 features the theme of an abandoned city, which is a nice change from the claustrophobic underground. This is the stage of the game where some degree of grind will be required to progress up the floors. Specifically, there are multiple floors that will contain mini-bosses. The higher the floor, the more tankier they will become. My first barrier was the Jin Dai boss on floor 16, where an underleveled fighter can get one-shotted by this unfair laser beam attack. So immediately I got to work. I searched up what weapons are good, what gears are good, and what's the best strategy. The community seemed to agree that the clothing iron is the best weapon to level to clear the main game with. So I farmed up the materials to level up the iron as much as the game lets me at this point, and got on to the boss. Remember, I'm doing this to prevent dying, because the punishment is just too high. This game doesn't seem to like it if you play it blind and rewards you for following a guide to its last step. This is the best way you can find success on your climb. There is a lot of jank in the game, but you can learn to play around it, which is exactly what I did. So I make it to the floor 16 boss. Let's see how well I do. Now that's what I call skill. This is also the point of the game where you unlock a new tier of fighters, some of which have higher level caps and stats than the tier below. So it's highly recommended to get new fighters when it becomes available. So far, the grind has begun to set in, but it hasn't been that bad. So let's continue. The Dawn on floor 20 is Colonel Jackson. We start the boss fight by disarming 3 bombs with a time limit. Enemies are fairly manageable. Then the main fight starts, except the boss is really just a slightly buffed version of Jindai, the exact boss that I just fought 4 floors ago. Again, the level design is fine, and the fight itself was pretty enjoyable. So let's see how many players made it this far. 6.8%. Wow. So we're halfway there. Floors 21 to 30 have the theme of an amusement park, which has some pretty good looking set pieces. The layouts look fresh and new after traversing through a sewer and the city. But of course, since there's only a handful of structures for the levels to choose to generate from, if you've seen floor 21, you've seen the next 9 floors too. At the same time, floor 20 plus is the moment in my journey where the grind really started to set in. To put it simply, the grind in Let It Die is downright abysmal, worse than any game I've ever seen. When the word grind comes to mind in gaming, it's usually the monotonous activities that often get optimized. So you spend as little time doing the boring stuff so you can actually get to the good stuff faster. Of course, it helps tremendously if players know how much time they need to put in order to reach a certain result, so you know where the endpoint will be and have more confidence in tackling that goal. Let It Die, however, does not do that. Upgrades for your gear will require certain materials, but the drop rates for them are not guaranteed. Say I wanted Wire Mountain for one of my upgrades. Well, I'll need to go to a floor that contains it to collect it. I can either go to a floor that spawns materials in the same tier as the Wire Mountain, but not this material specifically, or I can go to a floor that spawns Iron type materials, except the Wire Mountain is a 2-star material, and irons of other qualities can also spawn. This means it's completely possible to spend time farming for a certain material, only for RNG to screw you over and return empty-handed. If you thought this was bad, you haven't seen the worst of it. Most upgrades later on also require a certain material that can be obtained from killing mini-bosses. You can also get them dropped from elite enemies and certain areas, but the drops are random. The only way to guarantee a specific boss material is to actually go and farm that boss. Except, they are also not guaranteed to drop it. Let's say I wanted the DoD Black Metal. Well, the wiki says it drops from the Cohen mini-boss on floor 26. Except the floor that contains the boss isn't connected to the main elevator, so I have to clear and find the entryway to that floor first. Remember, the map and the floors are randomized each time, so I have to slog through the same enemies, the same level structures, using the same run and bait strategy to reach the boss. I defeat it and just think that I could have spent the last 15 minutes waiting for this moment so I can inch ever closer to my next weapon upgrade. And there was a chance that the boss just dropped a random weapon or some gold instead. Now I have to spend another 10 minutes or so making my way back to the elevator. Unfortunately for me, whenever you leave a floor and then come back later, the enemies will respawn. So as I try to run past everything, I make it back to the elevator, and finally I'm one step closer to a single upgrade of a single piece of gear. It's clear from the randomness of drops that the game does not seem to value your time. If there was a job out there where you had a 50-50 chance to get double your wage every paycheck, or get nothing at all, no one will work at that place. Grinding in this game is mind-numbing and incredibly frustrating when luck isn't in your favor. However, there's actually one more method that can guarantee rare materials with no RNG. On certain days of the week, on floor 27, there is a traveling merchant that sells high-end materials for gold. The Tower of Barbs follows certain rotations for each day of the week, and some floors and routes only appear on certain days, which I thought was pretty cool. At the merchant, you can buy one of each item at a time, and you must wait 1 hour before the shop refreshes. This method allowed me to obtain materials that would only drop on floors 30 and up. The only drawback is that it's really expensive. An easy way to farm gold, as suggested by the community, is to just partake in the PvP content known as the Tokyo Death Metro, where you raid the base of another player for their resources. You generally want to target players that no longer play the game so they don't feel frustrated. But even with this method, you still need a high enough rank in the TDM to accumulate gold quickly. And given that there's only one possible level layout, each raid feels exactly the same, and it gets samey real quick. But hey, at least there's no RNG involved. So after all that, I was able to upgrade my iron to the extreme and take on the floor 30 boss, Mr. Crowley. He proved to be pretty easy to beat. Since I was already pretty overleveled at this point, there's nothing much to really talk about here. Finally, we're out of the carnival area and move onwards to an area that seems to be the rooftops of a city. Again, I like the aesthetics here. However, floor 31 is where things go from bad to worse, and if you thought the grind I just described wasn't brutal enough, it only takes up from here. By this point, I've seen a good chunk of the game to know how every mechanic works and what I needed to do to reach my goal. So while I farm materials, let me talk about a certain topic I see that crops up every now and then regarding this game. I've seen people comparing this game to Dark Souls, and I think that couldn't be further from the truth. To really examine this idea, we need to take a look at Let It Die's progression system. In gaming, primarily multiplayer and MMOs, there is the idea of a horizontal progression system and a vertical progression system. Vertical progression comes whenever new gear or strategies are just strictly and objectively better than what you have right now. So you always have to chase after better gear to progress with the game. A classic example of this is World of Warcraft, where the game introduces new equipment that's just strictly better than the previous. So all players will always have a goal to work towards. Horizontal progression is where the new gear you earn are not necessarily better, but just open up more options for you to use. Maybe some gear is better in some scenarios than others, and you'll have to use your knowledge of the game to know when to use what. In a game like Elden Ring, you'll pick up new weapons all the time, but equipment that drop from the end game aren't necessarily stronger than the ones from early game. They just provide more options for you to play with. In other words, vertical progression is more stat-based, while horizontal is more skill-based. And before anyone asks, there are advantages and disadvantages from both approaches. In most roguelikes, you'll often encounter a mixture of both types of progression systems. Games like Dead Cells or Hades do have stat upgrades like health potions and more revives, but your skill and knowledge of the game is also essential to winning. The closest to a purely skill-based game would have to be rhythm games. There's no upgrades or perks that can get you an advantage. Every level is the exact same every time you play it, so no outcome can be determined by luck. If you improve at a rhythm game, you really did just get better as a player. This is as skill-based as it gets. In Let It Die, however, your gear and weapons are the main reasons you succeed. It has a stat-based progression system. You can't upgrade your defense in Dark Souls since armor only have cosmetic purposes, and your ability to read enemy attacks and dodge at the correct timings is what defines your skill as a player. Let It Die, on the other hand, does not have a functional dodge roll, and there's no flow in combat. See, the gameplay feels very janky, but you can play around it by having overpowered gear. By having Having a high enough defense stat, you can tank multiple unfair hits. You can afford to make more mistakes. The point I'm trying to get across is that Let It Die is not a skill-based game. Calling this game a Souls-like is a disgrace to the Souls-like genre. I have no problems with people enjoying it for what it is. I just want to dispel the false belief that this game is somehow comparable to Dark Souls. It's not. Now, given that the difficulty picks up from here, let's talk about what you should do whenever you get gated by a boss. If you can't defeat a certain boss, any future floors are locked, so you have to defeat them in order to proceed with the game. Some floors have gear checks so extreme they are a completely different ballpark from the normal enemies you just fought. In some cases, if you're not properly geared, the boss can feel like a slug to go through given their inflated health and attack values. Not to mention considering the game's clunky combat and the dire consequences of dying. So how should you approach them? Well, first of all, the game softly nudges you that you should probably farm up the best possible gear that you can find, as doing so will give you a much better fighting chance. Next, something the community would recommend is to farm up some mushrooms. Some of the consumable fungi you can scavenge have really powerful effects, like a mushroom that automatically revives you to 50% HP if you take fatal damage, or one that turns you invisible for 15 seconds, or one that stops time, or a late game one that literally turns you invulnerable to all sources of damage. Something you can do is to abuse the hell out of these effects. The one that stops time essentially stops all bosses in their tracks, while you dish out whatever damage you can within its effect. Search up any boss fight for these floors and you just see people doing this exact strategy. This is obviously a very cheap and brain-dead way to get past the bosses. Some people would defend this by saying how the game already cheats you with its unfair mechanics, so you should cheat back using this underhanded method. But my argument is that boss fights in video games are supposed to pose some degree of challenge, where you learn their attacks and weak points and eventually overcome them when you get better at the game. Where is the challenge if you literally just make yourself invincible and be unable to take any damage at all while you take pot shots at the boss with no strategy or consequences? For me, this is not fulfilling or fun, yet I'm forced to do this to make safe and steady progress, and I'm not the only one that's felt this frustration. To really illustrate how important it is to keep your equipment to the best quality you can, here's my experience fighting a new mini-boss on floor 32.
What in the goddamn?
So I enter the arena and as you can see, yeah, a single hit wiped out 100% of my health. Now I did manage to down this mini-boss, but even then, I researched beforehand how to deal with this and still had a rough time with it. Now you could just retort by saying, get good. Don't rely on cheap strategies. Don't use overpowered gear. Fight the bosses fair and square, and if you die, just try again. On paper, this idea is fine, and I would have definitely preferred to do it this way. Except in this game, you really don't want to die. Dying will set you back somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour trying to buy back your fighter by grinding coins or equip yourself in a fresh set of gear. It will set you back that much time just so you can have another attempt at the boss. The safest and optimal strategy is to get past the levels using whatever gear or weapons that give you the best chance of survival and get through them by any means necessary. And most importantly, avoid dying at all costs. This game does not reward you for experimenting with different strategies that you might think of, which directly contradicts what a roguelike should be. My experience with floors 31 to 40 was probably the roughest out of all the previous floors. Dying on these levels will net you a huge goal loss to recover your fighter. Without the literal best of the best gear at this point will get you annihilated in just a couple of hits. The only problem is that you have to farm the materials that spawn at these floors, so even a farming run may not be as simple as you think. This is also the stage of the game where your item upgrades cost ludicrous amounts of resources. You can farm them for an entire day and be enough to upgrade one item to a comfortable amount. After a lot of planning and finessing, I finally managed to pull through to floor 40, aka the final boss fight of the main game. The final boss is Taro Gunkanyama. He's a sumo wrestler. We start the fight by having our gear completely stripped away, then fight some haters on a platform. Getting knocked off means instant death. Once you reclaim your weapons, the main event starts. And let me tell you, this was actually the best fight I've seen in the game. First of all, the soundtrack goes hard. I was actually tearing up because of how hyped the track was. Here, take a listen.
악인들을 해치우세라!
In this fight, Taro jumps, dashes, swings, and rolls around you, while there are actual attack windows that you can punish, and ways to actually dodge them. Yes, the jank is still there. You can still get unfairly chained into an instant death. Yes, it's still a gear check, as having the best gear makes this fight a lot easier, but I think this fight is a prime example of what the game could have been. The OST sounds like something straight out of a Yakuza game, and the fight itself is dripping with interesting flavor. This has got to be, dare I say, one of the most creative, engaging video game boss fights I've seen in a while. Now, I won't spoil the ending, obviously, and it's not like the story was that good anyways. But yeah, after you beat Taro, that's it. That's Let It Die. To transition into the next topic, as I was already praising this boss fight, I wanted to highlight some of my favorite moments during my time with this game. Despite all its rough edges, I don't think it's fair to say that the game is all bad. There are clearly some unique aspects and feel-good moments I haven't felt in a while. For example, I fondly remember my sigh of relief when I saw the golden glow of an elevator as I was just about to run out of resources on the higher floors. The odd and eccentric style the game takes, especially with the lore in boss fights, and how a pamphlet has comics for the boss's origins. It's also got a highly addictive soundtrack, as the composer licensed hundreds of songs from artists and asked them all to name their songs Let It Die. This is genuinely really cool. The creativity is something I don't see very often in gaming. It's a shame that radio doesn't play more often during gameplay. My favorite track from the OST has got to be Let It Die. This game, in my opinion, does have a pay-to-win model, but it's not that bad. The main concern is the grind, which is not something that can be easily skipped. Looking at the reception surrounding this game, the reviews across the board have always just been okay. It's sitting at a 7 out of 10 on Metacritic, and mostly positive on Steam. It's clear that a small, dedicated fanbase still enjoys this game, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let It Die is a deeply flawed game with silver linings. At certain points, I wanted to give up. I didn't see the point of committing so much of my time and energy into a game that doesn't seem to value them. Why would I spend 30 minutes in an hour grinding for materials that might not even spawn when I can just hop on a game with the boys in Deep Rock Galactic? To people that defend this game, 88% of players who have the game in their library never made it past the first major boss fight. Why do you think this is the case? Even the Warframe has an achievement where you play for 2 hours, and 40% of players have that achievement. Let It Die has many problems, but at the end of the day, I honestly think this game was onto something. The boss fights all have their distinctive style. The idea of an ever-changing tower can spell an exciting new journey for players every run. Let it be known that I am not against the idea of a live service roguelike. Imagine a roguelike with a monetization model like Deep Rock Galactic. One-time fee, no microtransactions. You try to make it to the exit of a sprawling
After I recorded this video, there was a big update involving Ruben Sim and some other stuff. I'll put a timestamp for where this stuff happens, but please watch the entire thing because I recorded this video and then I got more info and we need to talk about it because it's not good. I also probably will live stream right when I upload this video, so go watch that right after. Link will be in the pinned comment. Today I'm going to be finally addressing the adrenaline situation, which a lot of people have been asking me about because it's a very complicated situation and there was a guy who did some pretty bad stuff. He was the owner of Adrenaline. So today we're going to be going through all of that, talking about why this game, it might not be completely cooked, and there's going to be a big announcement at the end. So please make sure to watch until the end. You're going to want to know about this because it has a lot to do with this channel. The previous owner of Adrenaline was a guy by the name of Vertex. Wow, this guy is so broken. Vertex is 16 years old, so people were like, okay, he's not going to get exposed for anything because, I mean, he can't be doing any Stylus Studios related stuff because unlike the PF devs who are all of age, he's not of age. But that couldn't be further from the truth for this guy because a lot of stuff started to come out. It's crazy. He had been saying a lot of the gamer word in the Adrenaline server, literally in the Adrenaline Discord for everyone to see. He also said something weird about the Catgirl skin in the game, which was really weird. And I have to be very careful about my words here, but he made an announcement that was talking about a current ongoing thing which had a ceasefire recently. Anyway, he posted a photo of somebody from that who was not like alive anymore. I have to choose my words very, very carefully for this, but the way that he wasn't alive was via like fire. That's very terrible. However, Vertex decided to make an announcement to his Roblox server and show the picture of the guy, which, yeah, you don't want a bunch of kids to see that, or basically anybody in general. Like, you can talk about it, and I think talking about it, if you're passionate about it, is a good thing, right? But you're not really supposed to show photos of that to little kids. So he didn't post these images as jokes, as far as I know, but he did post them in the announcements of a Roblox server, and he also said a bunch of words that you probably shouldn't be saying in general, especially in a Roblox server. So yeah, gamer word, not good. And he's also British, so I don't know why I was saying it. But either way, strange situation. This guy's not very good. People are like, oh my gosh, Adrenaline, it's cooked, it's over. This is the owner of the game, right? However, he actually stepped down almost immediately. So they shut down the whole Discord like Stylus did. However, Vertex, the owner, immediately, or almost immediately, he actually decided to step down to co-owner. And then the new owner named Liked, who is the previous co-owner, he actually completely fired him, which is crazy. Like, he's just gone. The Vertex guy who said all the bad stuff is now just completely gone from the game, which is pretty crazy. I kind of feel bad for him, but at the same time, he was saying some pretty bad stuff. And I actually forgot to talk about the worst thing of all, which is kind of sad that I forgot to talk about it until just now. He wasn't paying people. Yeah, so the people that were working on his game, he told them that they would get a percentage of what the game made, which made sense because they were just, you know, people working on the game consistently. And he decided to not pay those people. He went from you're getting a percentage of the game to you get 5,000 Robux or something, which to a lot of people sounds like a lot, but if you actually use DevX to turn that into real money, that's about $10 or something. Getting paid $10 for making an entire map, making a weapon and all of its animations and things like that. You could just go and mow somebody's lawn and make a lot more than $10, and it would take a lot less time as well. So it's not what they agreed to, and it's definitely not what those people deserved. So he wasn't paying people, he was saying all this stuff, and yeah, people were like, the game is cooked, but then he stepped down and then got fired. The new owner is a guy by the name of Liked. Now, a lot of people thought that Vertex and Liked were actually the same person, a lot like, you know, Sid9, Willow kind of allegation, you know? However, that's not the case because they were both in a voice call together. And secondly, now Vertex is, I think, pretty mad about the whole thing. The only things that were tying them together was just completely false evidence that made no sense at all. So yeah, Liked is not the same person as Vertex. The owner is actually a new person, which is definitely a good thing because the old guy was not paying people and saying a bunch of weird stuff. The question is, though, is the Liked guy going to have the same allegations? Definitely doesn't seem like it because he is taking a much smaller cut of the revenue from the game. He is paying people. The people that were mad before are seemingly happy, like they are getting their money. And it's very scary because Liked got exposed, quote unquote. Somebody tried to expose the Liked guy right after the Vertex guy. I was really scared because I was like, oh my gosh, I wanted to like help work on this game. And long story short, a lot of the people that helped expose Stylus were helping look into this, and we were interviewing the guy who was trying to expose him, and the allegations were beat. I got a DM from a guy who's like, Liked is actually this other guy who likes kids and talks to minors, and he's hiding his identity and stuff. And yeah, it doesn't really seem like that at all because they had a clip of the guy who Liked was supposed to be, and they both talked because Liked was in the call, and yeah, it doesn't appear that they're the same person. So allegations there have been beat, which is good because I actually have a big announcement, like I said, which is actually that I am helping to work on Adrenaline. Now, I'm not actually a developer for the game. I have a bunch of different roles, and I'll go into that in a second, but it's really scary because I basically was like, hey, I want to try to like work on the game with you guys, and Liked was like, okay, let's do it. And then about about an hour and a half later, the liked guy got that expose, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to immediately quit. You know, I wanted to help Adrenaline, I wanted to help work on the game, I wanted to make videos on the game, but I was like, I'm not gonna go through this again, you know? You might be wondering, how am I actually working on Adrenaline? What am I doing for the game? That's a very good question. I actually have 3 roles that I'm doing currently for the game. The first one is they gave me the role of community manager, which basically means on the Discord, I'm going to have a lot of say in terms of the staff on the Discord, and also allowed me to add the rotator bot, which is a Discord bot that scans for Discord accounts that are in inappropriate games. They're in condo games, which if you don't know what those are, they're basically not safe for work games on Roblox, very not allowed on Roblox, but people go into Discord servers to join these games, and there's a bot that basically scans all of the servers, finds the accounts that are also in your server, and then just immediately bans them. The liked guy allowed me to add this bot to the Adrenaline server, which is really good, because he actually banned nearly 70 accounts, which is crazy. And he also let me just add it without informing any of the staff as well, so if there's a mod who is in those servers on the Discord, we can actually ban them too. Because the main thing is I want to essentially get all these Stylus Studios type people out of the Adrenaline community. That's going to be a big thing with my role, is making sure the staff team doesn't have a Stylus Studios type situation. So I'm going to hopefully stop this from going down again like it did with PF, you know? That's a very exciting role because, as you guys know from my video, I actually do care. So that will hopefully keep this community safe and keep the Adrenaline game from getting completely destroyed in like 3 years, you know what I mean? Number 2, I'm basically the official content creator for this game. We'll be making videos on updates. It's going to be a lot of fun because not only am I going to be making update videos for this game, I will be making some of the updates for the game, at least the balancing changes. If you guys didn't know, I used to make update videos for Phantom Forces. Every single update, I would talk about the update and I would go through a lot of things I'd like to see changed from the update, and they used to actually go and watch my video and take that into consideration, because unlike the contractors for the game who were usually too busy talking to miners, I was actually playing the video game and I actually knew what needed to be changed. I'm going to be giving the developers balancing suggestions, and they're going to be adding them directly to the game, which is really good. Right now we don't have the best system worked out for it because obviously I haven't been working with the game for too long, but there is a balance change update coming. The main thing is that I nerfed the M4A1 damage from 37 to 30 to 32 to 24, which basically means the M4A1 is no longer the best weapon all around at all times in the entire game. It no longer has a 3-hit kill range, and it's now a 5-hit kill at kind of far ranges. Basically, up close, this doesn't have the fastest time to kill of like any auto in the entire game, and at long range, it no longer has the fastest time to kill. Probably still going to be the best gun overall, but now it just won't be quite as versatile. And obviously, that's just to make it so, you know, people use a different gun, because I've actually, and this is the main thing I wanted to do, is buff a bunch of other weapons, because as you can see, the M4 is just literally the best gun in the game, and this will hopefully make it have some competition. I got them to buff the AK. They actually already did it, and it should be able in the next update to 2-hit kill head to a decent range. Right now it can't, and we're still working on the communication there, but the AKM should actually be a very good option now. It also now has a sight, which is really, really good. The AR9 is getting more damage and range, so now it's not going to be a 5-hit kill at like point blank range. AR9 was like literally the worst weapon in the game, because as you can see, even from that range, it drops down to a 5-hit kill, which is kind of ridiculous for the time to kill in this game, especially considering the M4 would have been like a 3-hit still at that range. Like even there, look, 24, like you can't be giving me 24 from that range. It should be able to 3-hit kill up close with 1 headshot, which is very good. The SR3M is getting a massive buff as well. Oh, wait, they actually added the sight. Okay, they added the sight, but they haven't buffed the damage yet. It should be getting a damage buff as well, which is good, because right now this gun is a little bit weird to use. Okay, yeah, they did add a sight. This gun is going to be a lot better. I don't know if they went through with all the damage changes to it yet, but the SR3M should be a heck of a lot better. As you can see, like, that damage is pretty good now. Probably too much better than the AR9. The AR9, well, it's about to get a buff. They haven't actually added the buff yet. But it's going to have a bit more of a max damage range, because right now a lot of the guns don't have any kind of max damage range. This gun is fire, though. And we definitely got to get an M9 buff. The M9 should not be a 4-hit kill body shot. That's ridiculous. Definitely needs, like, a decent 3-hit kill range, at least. Maybe a 2-hit kill head as well. Definitely let me know your balance change ideas in the comments, because that's the main thing I'm going to be working on. That guy just started shooting at me, then just gave up on it. That's crazy. Oh, all right, little bro. Oh my gosh. Also, I'm probably going to be nerfing the magazine size of... Wait. Did they already reduce the fire rate of this one? Okay, definitely don't need to reduce magazine size. What? Yeah, the devs are doing balance changes kind of apart from me, which we gotta work on the communication there. This gun sucks now. I don't think it needed this little fire rate, guys. It's crazy. This used to have literally like unlimited fire rate, and now it just doesn't have any fire rate at all. What the frick? Okay, well, you can still one-shot, which is good. Hopefully, because I'm working on the game, we can keep the balancing for the game good, and we can keep the community from completely falling into rot, you know? So after I recorded this video, literally last night, like the 30th, Ruben Sim sent me a DM out of the blue and asked if I'd been filled in on the Adrenaline owner. Apparently, Ruben had a friend named like Trav, who was really after the liked guy and thought he was a guy named Next, which is the same person that the previous people thought. So I was like, okay, well, two people coming to me, maybe this guy is really Next. So we made a group chat and they had a long discussion. The Trav guy was saying that liked was the next guy, and the liked guy was like, okay, let's get in a call. Like, I'll get in a call and I'll prove that I'm not him. And that's because the next guy had worked on the game and had been on the liked account. Next was a person who has been accused of, I think when he was 16, talking to a 13-year-old or something. I'm not sure everything. But either way, the liked guy and the next guy are two different people. The next person funded Adrenaline and actually was in the call. He was the person talking on the liked account after Vertex stepped down. And that made sense because I had some crazy cognitive dissonance when it came to the liked I heard in that call and the liked I heard in my DMs because he sent me voice messages. I was like, these are two different people. But then I was like, wait, was it liked in the call? Like, what was going on there? To put simply, Next was secretly funding Adrenaline behind the scenes, but also wanted to pretend he was the owner, but liked was the real owner. And you might be wondering then if liked knew that Next was a bad guy and was letting him fund the game anyway. Well, I think that's partially maybe true, but after the accusations that liked was Next, I think liked actually told Next to step away from Adrenaline. So I don't know if he knew the entire picture there. The problem is liked didn't change his Discord password, which allowed Next into his account, and Next was able to go and start telling people to delete evidence and do stuff like that. This is a very complicated situation. Right now I'm in limbo when it comes to working on Adrenaline. I don't know what the path forward is, and I'm going to stream, and I want you guys to let me know what should happen here, and we can talk about it more because it's such a convoluted situation. Like, it's so hard to explain it to you guys. But yeah, go check out that stream, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
According to It's Dankle in Grouse's chat, 9mm kills the body, but
This is a 9mm round, weighing roughly 7 grams. The bullet when fired flies over 330 meters per second and is able to penetrate not that much, but still a little bit. The bullet is shot by many different weapons, like the MP5, one of the most iconic weapons in gaming, always comfortably sitting in the SMG category. In most games, the MP5 is able to kill an opponent in 4 to 5 shots. And combined with the fast fire rate and high mobility, the weapon makes for a great tool for the run-and gunner. Now, the keen ones among you might have noticed that this is in fact not a pistol, and that me telling you this has nothing to do with the topic of this video. But does it really? Let's take the bullet out of the MP5's chamber and put it into the M9 Beretta, also known as one of the most iconic weapons in gaming. We know that shooting this cartridge means we need 4 to 5 shots to kill an opponent. So if we put someone with the M9 Beretta in front of an enemy that has the MP5, the M9 Beretta will always lose because its fire rate is just way too slow. What? That doesn't make any sense. It's shooting the exact same cartridge, yet this small thing somehow amplified its damage to almost double? That has to be an oversight, right? But then again, why is the damage suddenly horrible when I put the bullet into a Glock, needing like a bazillion bullets to kill an opponent? And if we are going to talk about pistols anyway, why do so many games get revolvers wrong? There are so many inconsistencies and balancing issues with handguns in gaming in general. Why can't they just be like real life? Why do we have to stuff those weapons away in the secondary slot instead of primaries? And why oh why can some pistols one-shot an opponent in the head, while other larger cartridge guns can't? So many questions and so many different handguns to cover. So grab yourself a snack, make yourself comfortable, and enjoy the show. The four main categories of handguns, and those I will cover, are semi-automatics, automatics, revolvers, and the oddities, like the flintlock pistol, or let's be crazy and say the flare gun. Under the semi-automatics would be the Glock, 1911, and even the Desert Eagle. Under automatics, you can also find the Glock and the CZ. You can also find this, but I'll get back to that in a minute. Finally, under revolvers, we can find the single and double action cowboy guns, and there's also the shotgun revolver. The first question we have to tackle is, what is a handgun? According to the all-knowing, also known as ChatGPT, a handgun is a firearm designed to be operatable single-handedly. Weird, because you have to use both hands to reload or pull the slide on your weapon, but we won't question our future oppressors. Here is where it gets even weirder. What classifies as a pistol? Is this a pistol? This? How about this one? Well, this one isn't. This weapon isn't one either, but the third one actually is a pistol if we ask America. As long as the barrel is under 16 inches, the gun has a pistol brace and not a stock, which here's the difference. And as long as you have an angled grip and not a vertical grip, then this is classified as a pistol, and this on its turn is classified as a short-barreled rifle? God bless America, fellas. I hope this clarifies why this is also an automatic pistol. Before we can dive into balancing different kind of pistols, revolvers and whatever, we first have to balance those gun categories as a whole. Think about it. In my previous weapon balancing videos, I tackled one kind of weapon category at a time, aka basically this part of what we are going to cover today. It's ambitious, I know, but it's kind of hard to just talk about Glocks and 1911s without including Cowboy Desert Eagles. And if I talk about those anyway, why won't I just talk about the rest as well? So, what is the purpose of handguns in the game we play or want to make? Do we want pistols to be a weak backup tool or a reliable weapon? It's important to have a clear picture in mind before we take the deep dive. Think about Counter-Strike for a minute. CS2 is an economy-based shooter. Both teams rack up money for things they do, and with that money, they can buy bigger and better guns. When it comes to balancing, developers of economy-based shooters have a kind of get-out-of-jail-free card. If the weapon they made turned out horrible, they just lower the price and call it a day. If it is OP, then vice versa. This approach works, I guess, but it also confuses me, because the Desert Eagle is considerably better than an M249. Yet for the price of that LMG, we can buy 7 birds. In general, economy-based shooters are, in at least my opinion, almost unbalanceable. It doesn't matter how good, bad or unrealistic a weapon is. In the end, what really matters is the price tag associated with it. I unfortunately didn't study economics, so I won't be focusing on the price tag part of our balancing journey. Additionally, we have hero-based shooters. Every character is different, and their kit usually is as well. A fast, squishy character usually gets stronger weapons, and in return tanky characters get the weaker ones. Here as well, it is difficult to balance those weapons as a whole. The strength and impact of one of those characters doesn't solely depend on the weapon they use. It's a combination of their speed, abilities, and how they use those weapons that defines whether something needs balancing. The Spy in Team Fortress 2 has a completely unrealistic revolver that does horrible damage. Yet it's balanced because the character isn't made to run and gun into a building. He's supposed to sneak around, stab people in the back, and only shoot when things go south. The character Chamber in Valorant has a revolver that is basically a pocket sniper. But this gun is balanced because it takes up an ability slot, has a limited number of bullets, and because the opponents can buy their own pocket sniper, though theirs is a tiny bit worse and without a scope. It's the little things around the weapons that make or do not make a weapon balanced. For this reason, I will also try to stray away from hero-based shooters as much as I can. This leaves us with the pick or find a weapon game. And here is where I'm also going to shine. The main way developers balance handguns versus other guns is as follows. Copy the stats from the DMR, remove the range, add a little bit of movement speed, and done. A completely new weapon. Definitely not a reskinned marksman rifle. Let's be honest, that's a boring approach. Handguns are some of the most amazing and satisfying weapons to use in gaming. And this is how we make them playable? Nah, we gotta do more for the little bros. Allow me to suggest how I would balance them. If we are free to choose whatever gun we want or can fire, why do we usually go for non-handguns? Why can't we make the pistol a viable thing? I guess the best way to answer this question is by looking at Tarkov. From all the shooters I've played, Tarkov, aside from their horrible recoil changes and stupid scavs, is one of the most realistic shooters I have ever played. Their weapon damage system is exactly like a lot of people enjoy. It works like this. Every bullet has a damage and a penetration stat assigned to it, and within each caliber are different kind of versions of them that massively change how much the caliber penetrates and how much damage it does. For example, let's bring back the 9mm from the intro. In Tarkov there are 9 variants of bullets, and usually the game follows the balancing rule of the more it penetrates, the less damage it does, which it also does here. If you're wondering how they justify this to being realistic, they argue that if a bullet overpenetrates, it does less damage eternally than if it would catch and defragment in your opponent's body. Honestly, that's a really realistic approach, though this is just a 9mm round. I'm not too sure it can even penetrate a body at all. Anyway, between all these 9mm rounds is, for example, the rip round, made to do maximum damage to a person, though it can't penetrate anything. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have the PBB GZH, doing half the damage of what the rip round would do, but being able to penetrate up to level 3 tier armor pretty easily. Personally, I really enjoy this weapon damage system, as you really have to think about how you want to use your weapon. If you load it up with rip rounds, don't aim for the chest, as it doesn't penetrate the body in the slightest. Instead, you would have to aim for the arms or the legs to ensure maximum damage. Because of this pistol and this pistol are completely different and serve completely different purposes. And you know what? Just like in the intro, let's also bring back the MP5 and the pistol, which Tarkov obviously has as well. And lucky for us, they also shoot this exact caliber. Now, unlike in games that aren't Tarkov, the pistol's DPS output and fire rate are both just worse than the MP5's. It also doesn't have any range benefit or movement speed multiplier to the pistol, it has nothing. The pistol just sucks. But then again, if your goal for your game is for it to be as realistic as possible, then yeah, there isn't much we can do for any kind of handgun approach if we want them to be as viable as the other weapons. In realistic games, pistols will always be a bad option. Right? Not exactly. The American audience and the airsofters that are watching this probably already know where I'm going. Have you ever held a fully fledged M4 for 30 minutes in an active shooting range or a scrim? That stuff gets really tiresome. The average pistol weighs around 700 grams, while a fully fledged M4 weighs around 3,500 grams instead. I know, that doesn't sound too bad, but in practice, you will notice it does get heavy due to the balancing point of non-pistols. A handgun fits perfectly in your hand, while an M4, for example, always wants to tip forward due to the balancing point, which means in reality, it weighs more than just 3.5 kilos. You could aim a pistol all day without your arms getting tired, while any other gun, especially the bigger ones, get really heavy the longer you hold them. Additionally, operating a pistol like the also mighty ChatGPT have told us, can be done with one hand. Think about the possibilities for a moment that we can create for the players if we allow them to customize how they want to use their other hand. We can have them wield a knife like in the old Call of Duty games, or a flashlight. We can also be fun and allow the player to have maybe some kind of tactical phone with real-time information or something. If you really want your game to be realistic, then you shouldn't have a HUD, right? So then a phone like this could be some handy stuff. And that's not where the benefits of a pistol stops. Opening doors is a lot faster with a hand-free, and so is shooting around corners. No need to expose your body and your shoulder if you can just poke your hand around the corner instead. If companies really want to have realistic combat built into their game, they have to start thinking less confined to the established FPS genre and think more outside of the box. Handguns can very well be a primary and a solid weapon. And if you really start to think about it, like really, if you had to classify a handgun to a certain kind of player or a playstyle, it would hands down be the ideal weapon for a support player, rather than a backup one for everyone else. You have to pick someone up who just got down, do it while slaughtering enemies. Makes it more fun and intense at the same time. Are you the black sheep in the family and do you have to carry the objective back every time? Easily done with one hand free. The list goes on and on and on, depending on how complex your realistic game is. A handgun could almost be overpowered, yet it is the weakest. Honestly, right? If you are a developer and want to dive into realism, you have to try this approach out. I promise you, it will revolutionize your game for the support players among us. Pistols, revolvers, and whatever are just weaker. It's just how it is. But by adding all these small touches that I just covered, they can instead be stronger. If a player chooses a handgun, offer them customization in the term of how do you want to use your left hand? If they don't want anything, reward them with better recoil control, as it's easier to counter it with two hands on your gun. By the way, right? How about this customization, huh? What, you thought I wouldn't mention them today? Of course I won't forget the akimbo option. And here as well, let's try to make it as fun as possible. Do you want to akimbo your weapon? Be my guest. Each handgun gets normal recoil, so no need for shenanigans with any of them. And you are free to choose which handgun you want to be as your secondary. You want to play the Glock and the USB at the same time? Sure. You want to play the Glock and revolver at the same time? Sure. You want to play the Glock and the flintlock at the same time? Sure. Do whatever you want, buddy. You are the one in control. We need to stop limiting the creativity and the freedom of the players. Allow them to customize the weapon and their playstyle to their own extent. That way, people can really find their place in your game. It's so important. Anyway, that's the first part of our balancing journey done. Now it's time to balance the difficult stuff. Time to balance the semis, automatics, revolvers, and the oddities between each other. The established formula of the handguns is as follows. Semi-automatic pistol, weak damage, weak fire rate, but you move fast with it and the recoil is minimal. For automatics, it's basically the SMG, but suddenly the recoil is horrible and so is the damage and range? Even though they often use the same caliber as other submachine guns, but we already spoke about that. Revolvers are glorified Desert Eagles, but the bad Desert Eagles. Damage about 70%, and the fire rate being horrible, not to mention the recoil. At least the range is unrealistically high. Finally, we have the oddities, like the flintlock, often seen as a joke weapon by the developers, which is really just a shame. The damage is 99% because why not? And the fire rate is super duper slow. Range and everything else is all around the place, because extreme equals funny, I guess? This is how the usual handguns are balanced in games. For comparison, this is the AR, SMG, sniper and shotgun instead. Now, which ones would you rather take? Unless you are trying to be different, you won't be picking any of the handguns. Maybe that's fine. Maybe we want the handguns to be backup tools. But personally, I wouldn't mind an additional weapon category to pick from. Do I think that being able to one-hand the guns and have this additional interaction speed with everything else is enough for the handguns to be balanced? Not really. Even in games like Call of Duty, where they still clearly try to make handguns a viable primary, they still feel underwhelming and underpowered. Unless you akimbo them like shotguns, I guess. Plus, what if your game doesn't have interactables? Then that whole benefit is gone and we are back to zero. We need to do more for our one-handed friends to make them feel special. And I think the best way to do that is by looking at a couple games and study how they are used in there. What treatment do pistols and revolvers exactly get? And when do players actually use the pistol? And most importantly, what is the handgun's job compared to the rest? The first game I want to delve into to figure out these questions is Enlisted, which is also today's sponsor. To the folks at Enlisted, I hope you are okay with me being honest about your guns. So, because the game is a historical shooter, they don't feature 5.7s or Desert Eagles of impressive calibers, but they do offer other pistols and even some revolvers. But honestly, they all fall short. Not in a bad way, but rather in a it's accurate to its time manner. Handguns during World War II weren't that great, and because the game aims for realism, they, well, reflect that accurately. If you had to choose between a gun that can instantly kill someone at any range, or a pistol that only carries 7 bullets, needing 3 to take down an opponent, you would probably stick with the instant killing one. I've also noticed that when you encounter someone and manage to eliminate them, there is a high chance you will get instantly pulled into the next engagement. How? Well, in Enlisted, you're not just playing as a singular soldier, you control an entire squad. So if you jump into a gunfight with a pistol, hit all your shots and kill your opponent, you and your half-empty pistol might find yourself in a disadvantage when your former opponent re-emerges fully armed from around the corner. With all of this in mind, if you aim to be a fancy gunslinger, your headshot game has to be on point. Otherwise, be ready for a brand new soldier about to revenge his fallen comrade by unloading their STG-44 into you. Additionally, there is one more argument why in realistic games, such as Enlisted, handguns are more a backup tool than a go-to weapon. The maps. They are massive. Don't get me wrong, that's a cool thing, and personally, I'd love to play on big maps. But when you are wielding a handgun, that massive map suddenly feels 10 times as big. In close quarter areas with ample opportunity to escape, handguns can definitely be useful as a last resort defense tool. But in a huge open combat area, where you will spend most of your time, you would feel extremely ineffective with a pistol, and would once again much rather rely on your primary gun. I really only found myself using a pistol when my main gun was out of ammo. Or when I was in a tank, I guess, shooting enemies from my commander's cupola. You can easily tell that the game designers intended secondaries to be a last resort weapon, rather than a primary damage dealer. Which, don't get me wrong, is a valid approach for games aiming at realism. If you try to slay entire armies with just this small pea shooter, you might find your KD dropping faster than your magazine's capacity. What I will say about Enlisted is that it's a very unique game that mixes PvE and PvP combat all together. As mentioned before, you can take control of customizable AI soldiers and strategize for your team to get the win, against hundreds of other targets led by other players. Additionally, the game is free to play. You wouldn't have guessed that from all the clips I just shown you, did you? Enlisted offers multiple campaigns to play through that offer their own unique weapons, vehicles, and equipment from the outskirts of Moscow in 1941 to the hearts of Berlin in 1945. The game has an incredible amount of details, and the graphics are really good. Plus, it offers over 400 weapons, tanks, and aircraft. So, my lovely viewers, if you would be happy to support the channel and like the look of Enlisted, use the link in the description to download the game for free on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. You will also get a free bonus pack including a helmet, multiple weapons, 4,000 silver, and 3 days of a premium account. Thanks for listening to the sponsor segment. Alright, so on big maps, pistols are not it. And against big groups of enemies, where you need to be able to put many bullets down range rapidly or you will get refragged, the handguns once again fall off. Moving on, the game I have the most experience in and also hate with a passion. Rainbow Six Siege. Even though I don't like the game anymore, I always ran into an odd occurrence when playing it. This is the PMM, a Russian pistol for the Russian operators. The pistol does a whopping 63 damage per shot, and with even the most armored operators only having a max 125 HP health, you can down them with just 2 taps. As a comparison, this massive LMG does only 35 damage, almost half of this teeny thing. I don't know what Russians put in their pistols, but this is just way too overpowered, is what you would think. In reality, no one uses it and much rather opts in for their main weapon. The same story goes for revolvers. Here is Alibi. She has a main weapon that shoots really fast but does only 26 damage per bullet. In her secondary slot though, she can wield one of those that does a massive 78 damage per shot. 3 times as much damage than her Storm SMG. And no, this revolver does not shoot slow at all. Look at this. Not to mention, no recoil at all. And if that wasn't enough, it can even leave huge holes for you to peek through. This weapon as well though, is barely getting used. On paper, that makes no sense. Why use a main weapon that does way less damage, if you have a weapon that can 2-tap any opponent? Well, there are actually quite a lot of reasons why you generally don't go for pistols. First of all, in Siege headshots insta-kill someone. It doesn't matter if your weapon does 50, 20 or 1 damage per shot. If you hit someone in the head, they die. Because of this, it's generally preferred to have a weapon that shoots fast and does little damage over a weapon that hits slower but does more damage, aka the handguns in Siege. Secondly, pistols and revolvers have a steep damage fall-off, with both handguns losing a whopping 50% of the damage if you hit someone that's further than 22 meters away, rendering them basically useless. Though Siege is usually a close-range gunfight game, it's still important to be able to do good damage on long range. And here as well, it's better to use your main gun than a pistol that falls off so quickly. This on its own ties in with the fact that pistols aren't magnified. Almost every gun has a magnified scope available to glue on, but all handguns, aside from one, do not benefit from that. That might not look like too big of a deal, but personally, I am a big supporter of scoped weapons. This is the hitbox of someone when you ADS with a non-magnified weapon. Seems pretty normal. But this is the hitbox of someone when you ADS with a magnified weapon. Practically twice, if not more, as big. And if you glue a scope on a fast-firing gun that has not too much recoil, having someone's head twice as big makes killing opponents never easier again. On your left, you will see another reason why pistols aren't preferred by the players. Here is our opponent. You see him? How about now? Rough, right? Now, if we were to hold a normal gun with a standard sight, you would still see him. There he goes. In Siege, when you clear a room, at least if you are experienced, you always do it on head level. If you don't, you will miss out on free one-taps. The thing is, if someone is waiting for you in this room, they are most likely using cover to conceal most of their body. Meaning if we do our professional clearing, we would not spot the enemy as fast as we normally would. Of course, we can counter this by just always looking a bit lower. After all, we are going for body shots anyway, with our high damage handguns. But even his body level on its own turn heavily changes depending on the distance and verticality that you have. In general, a huge part of your screen gets blocked by your pistol. This is also why the CZ in Siege, that is fully automatic, has a big extended mag and does more damage than almost all SMGs, plus even has a higher fire rate than most of them, doesn't get used that very often. It's just so hard to see what's in front of you. In Siege, there are pistols that have scopes on them, making it way easier to go for nice one-taps and aim for head level anyway. But those all have a horrible DPS output, removing the only reason why we might go for pistols in the first place. And the one pistol that does have a huge scope and still some good damage has really annoying recoil and requires 3 shots to kill all but the lightly armored opponents, once again rendering it redundant. The fifth reason why handguns are generally less played is the lack of customization. Players tend to play whatever they enjoy the most. And with a modification system, they are able to customize a weapon to their own specific needs. But sadly on the handguns, all you can customize is if you want less recoil, a suppressor, and if you want a laser sight. That's quite boring. The final reason why they are less played is that we have DMRs in Siege, with damage as high as the handguns, though funnily enough, less than revolvers and the highest damage pistols. Nice Ubisoft moment. Not to mention, you can pick any scope in the game on those weapons, and they also have less recoil than pistols, more range and more magazine capacity, making it ideal for quickly killing people in the body and long range engagements, perhaps even more ideal for replacing a pistol. Those 6 reasons are why handguns in Siege, and I would almost argue that in gaming in general, are lackluster. Body shots aren't rewarding, damage falloff is insane, they aren't magnified, they block a huge part of your view, aren't very customizable, and if you do like to play single-tap weapons with high damage, why don't you just play the DMR? Moving on to something completely new to the weapon balancing series, let's take a look at a PvE game, ready or not. Though the game doesn't have DMRs, it does have a lot of handguns. How do the developers balance them if they don't have to think about how the people on the receiving end will feel about it? Well, almost exactly the same as if it were a PvP game. There is no insane damage drop-off or something, but there's also nothing that makes the pistol a more worthwhile weapon to use than a P90 for example. In this clip, I managed to bomb some terrorists, but once again, with some more difficulty due to not being able to see well without a scope. But then I noticed another thing a semi-automatic weapon lacks: the panic factor. As I opened this door, I was jumped by not 1, but 2 guards who I only managed to kill by spray and praying. Being able to shoot a lot of bullets down range by simply holding left mouse button is crazy useful when you're panicking. It's also just nice when taking out a singular person. Surely one of those 10 bullets I just emptied on him managed to hit his head. If a weapon has random spread when hip firing, or just always randomness in general, you are more likely to hit someone's head if you shoot 5 bullets per second than if you would shoot only 1 per second, aka a semi-automatic pistol. So what can we add on the board here that we learned from Ready or Not? I guess it's more that we learned the benefits from not playing a pistol rather than something about the pistol itself. Handguns are not great for the panic factor. Being semi-automatic means you have to carefully line up each shot before you shoot. And combined with the small magazine, it makes for a bad weapon to panic fire with. Additionally, you have less... how do I say this? Luck. Do you guys remember that math question we all had to face during high school about the probability of grabbing the red-colored ball from a jar of blue balls? No pun intended. The more times you try grabbing the red one, the higher chance you escape your blue ball's destiny. From reviewing those 3 games, I guess we got a pretty solid idea of the strengths and weaknesses that handguns have, with them mainly just being bad in way too many ways. I am genuinely struggling to find a viable solution for handguns for them to be in the primary slot. The only thing we can do is try to make every pistol as basically an odd variant of the existing primary weapons. The semi-automatic pistol would have to be a close-range DMR, like most games already do, while automatic pistols would have to be like an extreme version of the crisp factor, fast fire rate, little damage, horrible range, and even smaller ammo capacity. Revolvers would have to be like Chambers pistol, one shot in the head on any range and needing many bullets in the body to kill, making the revolver a weapon only to be used for skilled players. Kind of a shame really. The oddities like a flintlock can, well, like what I already said before, basically be an almost one-hit weapon. If I'm trying to be optimistic here, I guess it's already a lot better than what most games already do if we take these approaches. And to make it slightly better, we can make it so the players are able to mod the pistol to at least fit a scope on it and other attachment stuff. On top of that, we can make it so they all have a pretty tight hit factor, making it at least somewhat distinctive. And to say cherry on top, it also has this one-handed interaction bonus. All of this will probably be enough to make it a viable primary slot. But as you might already know, I'm not a big fan of unrealistic changes to a weapon. But if you really want the handgun to be a primary weapon, then here you go, I guess? Okay, I made up my mind. In my honest opinion, handguns should be secondaries. But maybe we need to stop linking secondaries with being a bad weapon. Why don't we make them as a solid, quote-unquote, worse version of already existing primary weapons? Surely you guys played a sniper before and were like, man, I wish I had something good to protect myself with on close range. Or when you played a shotgun and you felt like you needed something for longer ranges when you cross a big field. Well, my good fellas, this is our opportunity to fix that. At the beginning of this video, I introduced a lot of different handguns. And for a good reason. Those weapons are basically the must-have variants in games. So let's reel them back in and let's make them viable secondaries without being too unrealistic. Starting with the Glock. Damage, 4 shots to kill. Fire rate, okay. Range, medium. Recoil, low. Mobility, high. Handling, also high. And new to this weapon series due to popular demand, magazine capacity, which is also high. Though the damage here is definitely better than in most games where the Glock is shown, the high magazine capacity and low recoil make it a very noob-friendly gun. Next up, we have the 1911, but this could as well be any other good guy pistol that we see in games. Damage, 3 shots to kill. Fire rate, just like the Glock. Range, alright. Mobility, still the same, it's a pistol. And the handling, slightly slower than a Glock. And to make it distinctive, let's have it so the pistol can hold max 7 bullets. This makes it so your shots count a lot more. But also that you're able to kill an opponent with a singular headshot, which the Glock can't. Keeping the skill ceiling high, but making it difficult to kill multiple people due to your low weapon capacity. Now, for the Desert Eagle, I had a lot of trouble balancing it. To the point, I almost wanted to remove the weapon entirely. Desert Eagles and revolvers always share a spot together, and are both basically the one-shot headshot machine. But I'm not a big fan of weapons being the same. I want every single one of them to be distinctive. Because of that, I'm going to change the revolver ever so slightly. I will get back to that in a minute, so before you start to write hateful fanfiction about me and your favorite tool, just hear me out for a little second. The Deagle will remain as the one-shot headshot machine, but there is a catch. I like the idea of pistols being able to dome people in the head with one click, just as all the assault rifles should do. But I don't like how it can both shut down people with one bullet and do a lot of damage to the body. So, my suggestion. Damage, 2 shots to kill. It's a deagle after all. Fire rate, medium, just like the 1911. And the range, good. But here it comes. Recoil, horrible. When you shoot a shot, your weapon needs a second or two to reset again. Spam the gun all you want in your moment of panic, but don't expect to hit much, unless luck is with you, of course. Though I want mobility to be high as it's a one-handed weapon, I feel like the handling of the Desert Eagle should be slower to punish those who try to push its luck. Moving to automatics. Should we have the automatic Glock have the same stats as the semi-automatic Glock? I'm going to side with realism over cartoon logic here and say it should have the same damage. Yes, even higher fire rate because it's automatic. To balance it though, I want to make the recoil really bad. In a bad way that, in close range, you will have no issue killing people quickly, though slightly slower than an actual SMG. While on the longer ranges, it will be really hard to hit shots consecutively. The CZ on the other hand will have a lot better recoil, but with a little evil twist. The pistol only has 8 rounds. It needs 4 bullets to kill and the fire rate is pretty good. The recoil is good as well, the range alright, and mobility and handling, well, you know it, it's a pistol. The thing though, if you pick this gun, you only have 2 magazines. The one in the gun and the one in the front as a grip. Once you run empty on your first mag and you detach the front one to use it, the recoil will suddenly get a lot worse. So the first engagement, you will be pretty solid. The next one, maybe not so much. Okay, so we are back at this monstrosity, the American pistol, but let's be honest here, it's just a stupid AR, so bye-bye! Okay then, the revolvers. We have the single action, double action, and the shotgun revolver action thing. Let's do it like this. Single action revolver shoots slower due to you needing an additional step to shoot. But they are going to do more damage because we are going to choose a bigger caliber revolver for the single action type. Damage, 2 shots in the body, and range, alright. Recoil, really good. It's not a sniper as in sniper thing. It's more like a more manageable DMR that hits slower. Additionally, we have the double action revolver. It shoots faster, has lower damage, and the rest, well, you know it. It cannot one-shot opponents in the head, but you can do a lot of damage in the body. For both the revolvers, I would like to make it so it takes ages to reload, so your shots really count. Finally, well, we have the pocket shotgun. We grab the stats from the existing shotgun, reduce everything just a little bit, and here we have the weapon for absolute close range engagements. The flintlock is a one-shot use thing. You shoot it, you can't reload. But on extreme close range, you can one-hit an opponent in the body. Though if you shoot the legs or arms, they won't die in one shot. The weapon is like a get-out-of-jail-free card, yet you can only use it once. The flare gun would be like a secondary flamethrower. If you hit someone, you do a little bit of damage, but they will burn to death unless they somehow extinguish themselves, like by jumping in water. This means you can also one-hit opponents, but that isn't always a smart thing to do. First of all, you can still be killed by your opponent even if you hit them first, as they are on a timer. Secondly, the flare will be projectile based, which means it's not a hit scan weapon, which is really hard to hit with. Finally, you only have one shot. A fun tool which might be OP, but also might not be. This is how I would personally balance all the handguns. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to figure out a completely new thing for the handguns, as it would be too unrealistic, but I did manage to give an approach for the guns when they are in the primary weapon slot and for when they are secondary. I really enjoy handguns in games, and if you make it so they are just slightly worse primaries, but in the secondary slot, there is a valid reason to enjoy them, and we won't forget that we even have them equipped. Plus, picking a sniper no longer means you can't contest an objective that is in a closed building. You can just switch to your automatic Glock or CZ-75. Now, before I tell you about my beautiful Patreon supporters, a gentle reminder that if you want to try out the Enlisted yourself, use the link in the description to download it for free on PlayStation, Xbox and PC.
How strong is the red mist?
The answer to this question might seem obvious, and there is already a source on this, but is that source truly accurate? I'll explain everything. Before we begin, for those who don't know who the Red Mist is, I'll give a brief summary of her story. After that, we'll dive into the power scale. Gebra and Kali. These names represent different versions of the same person. In this video, I'll be focusing on Kali, because Kali represents Gebra in her prime. Her time as the Red Mist. Gebra's childhood was anything but stable. She grew up in a part of the backstreets that was constantly changing. While her neighbors weren't exactly the most kind-hearted people, there were a few adults who treated her nicely. Sadly, most of them would either vanish or end up brutally mutilated in the streets by the next morning. This was during the peak of the turf wars between syndicates. As Gebra explains, a chaotic time not unlike the conflicts happening in Alcorp's Nest. Through sheer luck and relentless observation, she managed to survive until the age of 13. Her ability to adapt and strategize allowed her to keep going, treating every moment as an extension of her borrowed time. By the age of 20, she had become a fixer, vowing never to sink to the level of the syndicates that plagued the backstreets. As a fixer, Kali finally found a semblance of stability. She believed that with her newfound power, she could protect her neighbors, the same people who had fed her when she was a child and who felt like the closest point of family she'd ever known. However, her gratitude was met with betrayal. Those very neighbors conspired with others in her apartment to invade her home. They tied her up and searched for any money she might have hidden. Heartbroken and disillusioned, Kali saw them as nothing more than greedy, prowling parasites. The same people she had risked her life to protect. She could have broken free from the ropes at any moment, but she waited, clinging to the naive hope that this was all a misunderstanding or a cruel prank. That hope was shattered when she overheard them plotting to use her money to move somewhere else, leaving her behind. It was a harsh realization that left her enraged and in tears. In a fit of fury, Kali killed the intruders, the very people she once saw as her family. In that moment, she realized a bitter truth. The people she had tried to protect were no better than the syndicates. Given the chance, anyone would resort to violence and greed for their own survival. No matter how much power she gained or how hard she tried, Kali could not break this vicious cycle. It was a cycle that turned victims into perpetrators and hope into despair. Now, let's dive into the power scale. And yes, I know, I didn't cover the entire story. That's because the rest of the story ties directly into the scaling itself. I'll be walking you through her power step by step, using key moments from her story to explain everything as we go. During her conversation with Roland, Gebra mentions how she effortlessly took down 5 index proxies and 3 messengers all on her own. So, what is the index? The index is one of the 5 fingers, known for their fatalistic and dogmatic beliefs. Their entire organization revolves around following cryptic, seemingly random tasks called prescripts. Proxies are the enforcers of the index, while messengers are nearly equal to proxies in terms of power. They possess the ability to grow stronger as the battle progresses, all while inflicting the fragile status on their enemies to exploit their vulnerabilities. In addition to applying fragile, they can also weaken their opponent's power, showcasing their mastery as seasoned and highly skilled warriors. They are each classified as some of the city level threats, which means they are roughly on par with Ricardo in terms of power. This also implies that the 5 index proxies and 3 index messengers that Red Mist defeated with ease are each at least multi-city block level in strength. Considering that Red Mist took on all of them by herself, it's safe to say that her power far exceeds that level. In fact, we can confidently place her at the multi-city block level ++, solidifying her superiority. Now let's talk about Red Mist's speed. Once again, I'll be using examples from the Index and Vespa. According to a calculation made on the Versus Battle forums, an Index proselyte was shown to be fast enough to blitz a bullet right as it left the barrel. With further calculations, its speed was estimated to be around. Considering that the enemies attacking Red Mist were capable of reaching these insane speeds, and that she was able to take on 8 of them at once, this clearly proves that Red Mist is at the very least faster than. Now it's time to bring up Vespa as an example. Vespa, a grade 1 fixer from Distortion Detective, was able to effortlessly leap across an entire district carrying another person, despite being heavily injured. So why did I bring this up? Because if a grade 1 fixer can achieve such incredible speed and mobility, there is absolutely no reason why a color fixer like the Red Mist wouldn't be capable of reaching or surpassing. Kali took down several claws and even defeated Bina herself during the invasion of one of the first Lobotomy Corporation facilities. She also participated in the final battle against the Arbiter and the claws in the library. Now let's take a closer look at what Bina is capable of and use that to gauge just how powerful the Red Mist truly is. She is basically Jojo on steroids. Bina possesses an absurd arsenal of abilities, ranging from conceptual manipulation to outright negating the passes with hail damage. She can manipulate space, block away abilities, weaken opponents, and even nullify powerful technology. Her attacks don't just target the body, they assault the mind, the soul, and reality itself. And yet, despite all of this, Red Mist managed to not only survive, but ultimately defeat her. This isn't just a testament to her raw power, it proves that Red Mist has an insane level of durability, capable of resisting high-tier hacks abilities that would normally render most fighters completely helpless. I almost forgot to mention, she's not just resistant to pale damage, but also to white and black damage as well. White damage directly targets the mind, causing insanity, panic, or even suicide. Meanwhile, black damage strikes both the mind and body simultaneously, completely bypassing resistance to either. Yet, Red Mist endured both, proving her resilience isn't just physical, but extends to mental and existential threats as well. By the way, yes, I know that the reason Bina was killed was because she granted Kelly an honorable death, leaving herself open to an unexpected strike. But I don't think Red Mist won purely by luck. Think about it. Bina could have used J-Corp's Lock and F-Corp's Fairies to counter Red Mist's surprise attack, especially since these abilities activate instantly, and yet, being Gebra, she was the only one who could stop her before she died. This also proves that Red Mist possesses an advanced level of battle IQ. As seen here, Red Mist is capable of dealing area damage while also disorienting enemies upon landing a hit. The description on hit destroy a combat page set on another random speed dial target suggests that whenever she strikes, she disrupts her opponent's actions, effectively stunning and staggering them. Additionally, she is a character who grows even stronger with every hit she lands. Now let's talk about her ego form. Remember Virgilius from Leviathan? The one who, along with Fury, brought down an entire building without even using an ego form? And keep in mind, this takes place in a dystopian future where buildings are far more durable than what we are used to. So, following this logic, and considering that Red Mist is regarded as the strongest fixer to have ever existed in that world, it stands to reason that Kali in her base form is far stronger. And if we also take into account that Hack's durability I mentioned earlier, her overall durability should be at least town level. Alright, I've covered all of Red Mist's notable abilities. Now for those who might still be wondering, let me make it clear once and for all. Yes, Homelander stands absolutely no chance against Red Mist. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Before the video starts, I urge you guys to check out the sponsor of today's video, which is Tales from Sina Una, a 200-page adventure anthology set in the islands of Sina Una. It's got 10 new adventures set in a world inspired by pre-colonial Philippines, 3 new martial arts-inspired subclasses, a new player race, unique foes, spirits, monstrous beings, and giant chickens! Sina Una is a huge labor of love that I am so happy to shout out. Co-directed by my buddy Paladin, who also wrote Libations and the original islands of Sina Una. Seriously, they're awesome and have been showing me so much about this book. It's really, really cool. Please go check it out. There's a link down below. Hi, do you need some magic items in your D&D game and you looked at this old book? Oh, look at all the dust collected on it. What was this written 8 years ago? I don't want any of these stinky old magic items. They've been used 1 million times in all of my campaigns. How many times can I use the deck of many things before it just becomes uninteresting to my players? I need something new, something fresh, something to give them that'll just absolutely destroy any expectations I had for the end of this game. I want them to feel rewarded, but I also want me to suffer. Look no further to homebrew. And to be fair, there's a lot of really good homebrew on D&D Beyond. I'm just digging through the trash and just seeing what people are coming up with. What do people want to put in their games? Who took enough time to go through the abysmal D&D Beyond homebrew creation process that feels like you're coding the website for them in order to put this into their game, or put it onto their character sheet and trick their DM and be like, no, look, it's official. See, I have this. It's real. How'd you do that? Who made these magic items? Like the Necronomicon of the Undead, a wondrous item, legendary, requires attunement by a sorcerer or wizard that knows necromancy spells and needs meditation. An interesting requirement in order to attune to this book. You need it. You don't have to do it.
안 되면 어쩔 수
The Necronomicon of the Undead has a hard skin-leathered covered book with many spells that holds the power of necromancy. The cover of the book shows a face that seems to have come from a real human, but was ripped off its head. Whoa, calm down, those fears. All right, this is a lot. All right, I know it's the Necronomicon of the Undead, but a face from a real human? Origin. The Necronomicon of the Undead was made before the war between the undead and the living to outnumber the side of the living. But the book was cursed by one of the great wizards. Once the book was cursed, the book had to be sealed right away to prevent anyone to have the terrible curse. Many have tried to get the book for years, but none have passed the trial by the Necromancer, the guardian of the book. After a few years guarding the book, the Necromancer was filled with greed and took the book for himself and his desire. To regain the book, the great wizard killed him once and for all, and he has returned the book to its rightful place. What a hero, this great wizard. I'm so glad I get to know that. It's fantastic. That's about 50% of this magic item is knowing that story. So is that what the book is? It's just like a little story? You open it, and you get past that real human head that was ripped off from its body, and you get that little story. That's real neat. Powers. Hang on. So, not an origin book, not a lore book. That was just the lore to me, the player and or DM upon getting this book. The Necronomicon of the Undead grants the power of summoning any number of undead creatures. Okay. Real simple. Real right to the point. Any number of undead creature. So, if I get this book and I meditate and I'm a sorcerer, I can have 1 million demi-liches, 1 million liches, and 1 million demi-liches. Seems a little overpowered. Curse! Whoever wields the book will have an eternal curse cast on them once touched. So, you wield the book, you just take it, you whack it, so the curse doesn't affect me if I wield the book like on a stick. Regardless of the fact if I ever wield the book, alright? The powers I just have, I'm not using the book. As long as I have the book and meditate and I'm a sorcerer and or a wizard, I get 1 million liches. That's already on the table. If I want to whack somebody with this ripped off head book from a real human, I'll just get a stick and I'll hit people with it, avoiding the curse. The curse will not let you throw or let go of the book until you die. Well, see, that's why it's on a stick. Why would I want to get rid of it anyways? I can have 1 million liches. I'd be like, anybody want this? The only way to lift this curse is when rolling a dice if you used up all the charges of the book. He goes fierce. There's no charges. Where are the charges? Maybe if I use a charge in order to summon an undead creature, that would make sense. Also, I don't really know what undead creature I can summon. Yeah, I think the curse is good. I don't want to lose this book, so I think I'm going to keep it on me and make sure it stays on my person at all times, because no one will ever touch me at any time, because at any moment, 100 trillion, 400 trillion skeletons. How many skeletons do I need in order to create a planet? Could I create my own planet of skeletons and leave and control it all on my own? Wait, I don't control the undead. Wait. This completely changes everything. I can only summon. It doesn't specify that I control them. I just have to say how many skeletons what I need to summon with this book in order to destroy the sun. You know that whole thing? How many lions can be thrown at the sun in order for it to not be a sun anymore? How many skeletons can I summon in order to do that? Because it is book infinite. So I'd love to know that. And that's great. You can add that to your game. That sounds pretty fun. Anime girl ring. It's a ring, it's uncommon, requires attunement by a player putting on the ring. This ring is a small silver ring, and when Identify is cast on it, it reveals it's a ring of 3 wishes. But when a player puts it on, it tightens around their finger so it can be removed and automatically attuned to it. While attuned, a player gains the following benefits. I hate when that happens. I do that all the time. I'm like, oh, it's my wedding ring, and then sometimes it just... It doesn't really tighten, it's more that my finger gets large around it. They get a +8 to charisma to a max of 28. Ooh, that's very strong. They gain dark vision for an extra 60 feet. Well, the sheer amount of leadership, coercion, deception, and force of personality that I have is unrivaled to even demigods. Also, I can see in the dark a little better, just a little further. What, flashlight? Nope. And now I have 120 feet of disadvantage on perception checks in pure darkness. Cursed! God! The ring is cursed, and anyone who attunes to it will feel a warm sensation go through their body, making them more comfortable and unwilling to part with the ring. The attuned creature becomes the size of small, their eyes get bigger and their mouths get smaller. The attuned creature becomes overjoyed and wants to hug and kiss anyone they meet. If a creature was hugged or kissed on the lips... Oh no! For more than 6 seconds, a new anime girl ring appears on the non-attuned creature's finger, attuning them to the ring and gains the curse. The attuned creature's hair grows longer. If the cursed creature is male, they become feminine. Alright, oh good, I'm glad that the notes are control. Control and buff and social. Shape changer, this sounds about right. I don't know what to think about this at all. This is insane. But imagine that happening at the table, just like, hey, so you have to hug and kiss everyone you meet, and if you kiss them on the lips for more than 6 seconds, you also get the item. Everybody in the world is gonna have an insane charisma score. Infinity Slayer. Whoa. Weapon, Breaksword, legendary. You get a +5 bonus to attacks and damage rolls made with this magic weapon. Alright, well, see, I'm down for +5. +5 sounds cool. You know, we really go up to +3. Kind of the max that we go here in D&D because it can get a little insane. You don't want those 3.5 numbers coming back up again where I've got +30s to hits. Maybe there's some sort of negative where the player has to decide whether they want the +5 or this horrible negative. When you hit a creature with this weapon, the creature takes an extra 50 d20 slashing damage. Is this what all these are going to be? There's going to be insanely overpowered weapons? Is that all these are? I mean, at least the anime girl one was very strange. You still have +8 to charisma. It's ridiculous. Who's making these? Who went through the trouble? For the purpose of this weapon, creature refers to any creature with the any type, including commoners and unaligned creatures. Yep, that's how it is in the game too. The creature types of D&D: aberrations, monstrosities, oozes, humanoids, commoners. Commoners are different than humanoids. They're completely different beings, according to Flyer Lord. When you hit an object with the Infinity Slayer, the object disintegrates unless it's a magical item. Oh. If you drop this sword on the ground, does the earth just gone? Is it, or is it just like a patch of dirt? Or is it just like the crust of the earth is gone? Or is it just everything? The ground is disintegrated. That would be a horrific Infinity Slayer. Proficiency with a greatsword allows you to add the proficiency bonus to the attack roll for any attack you make with it. Oh, good. You added that little bit there. It's interesting that this item can disintegrate physically anything. Anvil, destroyed. Building, gone. Turned to dust. And if a person gets hit by it, they're taking average of 525 damage. I mean, that's fair. So if you've got like over 1,000 HP, I mean, this sword will probably kill you 2 to 3 hits. Why does it have a +5? If it's doing 15 to 20 slashing damage. I like that that's where I started too. I was like, +5. That's extremely strong. Oh, it disintegrates anything and also deals hundreds of points of damage. Of course. I really want to know. I really want to know why. Because I don't want to assume anything. But every time I read these, it just... And I said this in the last one, this was like someone's little cousin is just like writing these up and you'd be like, I made a D&D magic item, look! It does 1,000 damage! And if you touch anything with it, it disintegrates! If it's a player writing it, it's understandable. But with a DM writing this, there's so many more questions. Gloves of dexterity. Oh boy. Wondrous item. Rare. While wearing these gloves, your dexterity score changes to 27. The item has no effect on you if your dexterity without the belt is equal to or greater than 27. Oh, it looks like somebody may have copy-pasted one of those belts of giant strength, except they were like, well, why isn't there one for dexterity? I'm gonna make them gloves, but forget to change the belt part. There's a reason why there's magic items that increase a lot of strength in 5th edition, and why there's not a lot of magic items that increase dexterity. There's like 1 or 2. Maybe it's because strength affects damage from melee attacks and attack rolls and carrying capacity, and dexterity affects AC, initiative, finesse weapon attacks and damage, ranged weapon attacks and damage. The better skill checks. AK-47. Okay. Used by many soldiers in different places. Oh, sure was. It's up to you to decide whether a character has proficiency with a firearm. Oh, good. Thank you for specifying that. Characters in most D&D worlds have such a proficiency. During their downtime, characters can use the training rules in the player's handbook to acquire proficiency, assuming that they have enough ammunition to keep the weapons working while mastering their use. Wait, this is just somebody just created just an AK-47. Put maybe somebody could use this in a D&D game, and then didn't specify the attack and damage here. Who made this to put it on their character sheet? Somebody made this to put it on their character sheet, and then decided, I'll publish that. Maybe somebody else wants to partake in AK-47. Only if you really want to. Only some D&D games really have AK-47s. Death potion. Whoa. Potion. Common? This is common? Theoretically, we have death potions in our world all the time. You drink bleach, that's a bad time. That's a death potion. Only used in dire situations as the potion kills anyone who drinks the elixir. Yeah. Glad that's on the bottle. Smells and tastes like burnt rubber mixed with a dead corpse. As opposed to a light one. Can be added to a drink for the same effect. Oh, good. I'm glad if I add this to my little cocktail, it's gonna give it that burnt rubber and dead corpse smell. It's exactly what I wanted. Oh, oops, I'm dead. Oh, how did this happen? But, you know, actually, funnily enough, death potion, probably the most accurate item on this list. Real simple, right to the point. Common death potion. Anybody could have one of those. You pick up your drink and it smells like burnt rubber mixed with dead corpse. Do not drink it. Well, this was stupid. Did you know if you reverse the ratings, there's like like some magic in
Oh, hey, hi, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. I bet you're wondering why my door's open, and more importantly, why I flew in with a jetpack. Well, today is pretty special because I have a villain somewhere in the background who has been making this custom Star Wars button. Yeah, I bet you didn't think you'd hear that today. So, as an emergency, we're going to do it together as a family. So, why don't you say something, villain?
I'm feeling exact. I knew that was coming, right?
See?
Thank you.
That's our villain. We have Lirum, who's going to be like dungeon mastering live for me while I do this. So this is going to be fun. Without further ado, sit back, relax, and watch my torment. So let's fly. Everyone thinks that you would normally go down here and go on your stairs and go to the book and do this one and obviously select the Tor dungeon, but we're not going to do that, Lirum. We're not doing that.
You actually have to do that.
You actually technically have to do that, but for YouTube magic, I'm not doing that. I'm going
Don't deceive people up.
I'm going to use my jetpack.
Although I think you've given me an idea.
Good. So we fly up here, all the way up. Right here. Look around, and what do I see in the distance? Right there? What's that, Lirum?
Oh, that's your little
Yeah,
right?
that's my ship.
So
We go in the ship, board said ship, because Lyra literally made a ship for us. Look at this thing.
you don't even have to fly it because you've got droid there.
Oh, does it close the doors?
No, not in this version.
Oh god, okay, alright.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's not stable. She's rolling over.
Okay, so this is the ship that the player technically spawns in, right? But like not here. Like
When you start the dungeon, you'll begin in the back of this ship, and droid will be driving.
Okay, start the dungeon. I'm back on my ship. I know it looks like we crashed into the ocean, but that's Lyram's fault. That we did that one. But this is one of the main starting points that Lyram pulls out right now. There's like 4 or 5, right? That you can start on.
Yeah, I've given a couple. I'm not necessarily pleased with these. With some freebie stuff I grab, but yeah, you get 5 different stations. I have a harrower there that you can start on. But once you leave the ship, you'll kind of know what it is.
How do I leave the ship? Do I press home?
No, you want to use that. But don't do it.
So don't press home. You want me to go this way?
Yeah. Back to the ship. You'll find a lever. The Star Wars panel isn't functioning yet.
This one right here.
So do the lever.
Do I hit it?
Press up should open the door.
So just hit it. Hit it a bunch of times.
Eventually it will. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, other off.
Okay, there we go. That makes more. Oh, Jesus,
and there will be no gravity when you step out here. So you want to get to that airlock.
Oh, well, I can. How do I? Oh, I'm swimming. Okay.
Swim.
I swam too high.
Way to go. You've done it.
Hang on. Okay, so I gotta find an airlock.
You're going up? There you are. There you are.
Gotta find an airlock.
Straight down.
This one right here, that makes sense.
So this Star Wars panel you will be able to just punch
Dude, this is sick. Just the anti-gravity is sick. Can I grab on this stuff?
Yes, of course.
Oh my god, yes.
So yeah, just hit that with your hand and the thing should open.
Like punch
Go through the door fast, because right now you can get stuck on occasion.
Okay, alright.
There you go.
I like that. Oh my god. Oh, you just warmed me out that way. I could have died.
I know. I'm a villain, remember?
I like punch.
So like, everything's still work in progress. There's issues.
I like that this door just getting open.
Yeah, you're probably gonna wreck it on. Yeah.
Okay,
there we go.
So this is the airlock, the non-airlock. What's the airlock?
Yeah, you come inside. Yes.
We come inside, so this is it.
Come inside and then you can explore.
You can explore, you can look around.
Yeah,
like there's your terminal.
Yep.
So we can jump in. I can use the terminal. I can touch it. Something happens.
Not yet. No.
Okay. And then what's this?
One day.
This is a garbage can.
It's a box you can open. You could pack that around.
Hey! Look! I found a flashlight.
Yes. So told you. Look for flashlight.
Is this actually
I recommend
a flashlight?
you should probably read the description on that one.
How can I read the description right now?
Grab your inventory thing.
I disabled that. I don't like inventory thing. So this is a flashlight, right?
There you go. It's a flashlight.
So I just look at it and turn it on?
Yeah, look into that end and turn it.
Whoa! Liam, you almost just killed me with this.
I know.
Oh god, you made a custom. Tell me about this, dude. Tell me about your. Oh my god.
The damaged lightsaber.
Yeah, tell me how this works, dude.
It has a chance to fail on ignition, so and it has a chance to hurt you if it fails. While it's running. There you go, it failed.